Thanks for tuning into the show that goes around the continent to bring you stories near and far. I'm Trained Balinusa at Channels Television here in Lagos. I'm joined by Vincent McCory from Voice of America in Washington.
Well, thanks. I'm Vincent McCory at the Voice of America. Happy to be with you again for another edition of Africa 54. Let's start off with the latest from Nigeria. Chamberlain Oso in Lagos brings you that story.
The federal government of Nigeria has launched a nationwide vaccination campaign as efforts to scale up the country's COVID-19 response. Africa's most populous country has a goal to inoculate half of its targeted population and reach herd immunity by the end of year 2022. The plan will see vaccine sites set up at private health facilities, universities, colleges, stadiums, motor parks, and shopping malls, among other venues across various states.
The federal government flagged off a nationwide mass vaccination campaign in November 2021 to scale up the country's COVID-19 response. To achieve this target, the government expanded the COVID-19 vaccination network to increase access to the vaccines.
We have now even expanded the scope in terms of the number of health facilities that now have the vaccines. We have now involved the private sector. But beyond that, we have also established mass vaccination sites. I'm sure you can go around and see some of these mass vaccination sites.
Statistics from the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency show that Nigeria is not even close to its COVID-19 vaccination target. For instance, only 7 states have achieved between 10 to 31% of their targeted population, but vaccine hesitancy remains a major barrier.
The biggest challenge that we face is when you come across a person that is literate, exhibiting the habit of hesitancy, refusing to believe in science, and refusing to accept this vaccine and the reality of the time. That is a source of challenge to all of us.
We are getting more vaccines. As I'm talking to you today, we have enough to vaccinate as many as we can. So we are waiting for people to come and get vaccinated. Before we are talking of the vaccines are not enough, but nowadays the vaccines are enough, but the people are hesitating.
So far, Nigeria has administered 15.3 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines. 4.6 million people have also received their second jabs. This figure represents 2.2% of the targeted population, which is a far cry from the 40% target set for the end of February 2022.
Well, joining us to discuss this is a public health consultant, Dr. Nsia Basaikan. I'm glad to have you on Africa 54.
Thank you for having me.
Well, mass vaccination exercise has suffered a setback. Vaccine hesitancy remains a challenge. How would you suggest governments go about this such that the unvaccinated can be vaccinated?
All right. With regards to the issue on vaccination and the low uptake of vaccines, COVID-19 vaccines in Nigeria, there are a lot of issues. There are basically some systemic issues and some external issues. These can be looked at from different angles, from both the supply side and the demand side. And if we look at the supply side, the very question that we want to ask ourselves is, do we have enough doses of the vaccines in all the centers? Now the government is looking at, decentralizing vaccination, delivery points. We are looking at offering the services at stadiums. We are looking at churches. We are looking at, in fact, we are even looking at using community pharmacies. As I speak to you, a lot of community pharmacies have already been trained across the country as vaccination sites. But the question now is, do we have enough doses to go around? And also, do we have enough manpower that can actually roll out these, vaccination across the country? This is one question that we need to ask, and we need to look at the system and see if we are able or we are ready to roll out these vaccines, in all the centers. That's on the demand, on the supply side. On the demand side, we want to look at hesitancy. Hesitancy has continued to be a problem, not just in Nigeria, but across the world. We even learned about Djokovic, who has, up until now, not been really willing to declare his vaccination status. This is happening across the country, across the world. Now, for Nigerians, what do Nigerians really need? Nigerians need that level of trust in the government. And I feel that so far we have not been able to gain that trust in the people. And that's why a lot of Nigerians feel that the vaccination is not probably in their own good. Secondly, Nigerians do not see the need for vaccine because the right information is not passed. People feel that if those who have taken the vaccine are still coming down with the virus, then what is the need, for going for the vaccine? But then we have seen in many cases, I've personally seen a family of about 5. The only person that was not vaccinated died in that family July last year. So we need to communicate this to the people. We need to tell them that, look, the vaccine would help. Yes, it may not help to protect you from ever getting the virus, but it will help to reduce complications if one is infected with the virus, so that they can then do their risk analysis, their risk-benefit analysis, and then understand the need to go for the vaccine. So, and then again, one other thing we need to also do, if possible, is to look at ways we can incentivize people, to take this vaccine. We've seen in many countries of the world where hesitancy had been a problem, people have been incentivized. People have received some kind of tangible and sometimes non-tangible, benefits of having taken the vaccine.
Well, lots of people are not exactly aware of this online booking for vaccination. So quite a number of people find that challenging. How do you suggest government go about it?
I feel that the government should try as much as possible to help publicize the online booking platform across all the media channels, both the print media, the digital media, even the social media, so that now that Twitter is back, I believe that this is the opportunity for Nigerians, for the government to use the Twitter platform, to inform Nigerians about the booking platform, and to encourage Nigerians to go on that platform, knowing fully well that from my experience and the experience of most people who booked online, we've realized that if you book online, you are given preference. You are likely to be, first of all, allocated to the nearest primary healthcare center closest to you. That means you don't have to move around looking for centers. And even when you get there, because you booked online, your details have already been reserved at that vaccination center. So the moment you go, in less than 5-10 minutes, you are done with your vaccination and you go. And then in handling the vaccine rollout, we must understand that there's what we call the theory of innovation diffusion theory, which states that, people are likely going to respond to innovation in different ways. We have people that we call the early adopters. These are people that once an innovation comes in, for example, the COVID-19 vaccine, they're eager to take the vaccine. We have the people that are, early majority. More people come in, they take the vaccine when they see that others have taken the vaccine and they have not had maybe significant issues. Rather, they have seen huge benefit with it. And then we have the people that we call never adopters. These are people that will never take the vaccine. These are people, and unfortunately, majority of Nigerians are almost falling into that category of people that don't want to take the vaccine. Even among healthcare workers, we need to engage them and we need to look at ways we can persuade them to take the vaccine. That way, we can get majority of Nigerians to take the vaccine towards achieving herd immunity, which is 70% of our population.
Clearly, you have a work cut out for us in that regard then. Well, thank you very much indeed, Dr. Nsebasi Ekane.
Thank you for having me.
Authorities in Ghana are trying to save an endangered monkey species from the risk of extinction. Authorities say human activities are destroying habitats of white-napped mangabey monkeys that only live in a few parts of West Africa. Victoria Munga reports from Accra.
At the Accra Zoo in Ghana, a worker is feeding some of the few remaining white-napped mangabey monkeys. 18 of these monkeys found their homes in this zoo after their habitat in the wild was destroyed.
The environment or the habitat of animals we have are affected by human activities. That is just an example. Other attributes could be there. And so sometimes it forces the animals to lose some of their habitats.
Wildlife Vets International, a charity organization providing veterinary support to international wildlife, found that by the end of October 2020, there were only an estimated 1,000 white-napped manga bay monkeys in the wild globally. Activists are pushing for the United Nations to adopt animal welfare as one of its focal activities. In the same manner, the world body focuses on protecting human rights and maintaining international peace and security.
In this part of West Africa, animals are not actually regarded as living beings. People mistreat them. So with our education now in the schools and in the communities, where animal welfare is gaining grounds and people are beginning to respect animals, cruelty is now on the low side.
Meir Zieka, a veterinarian of Ghana's Forestry Commission, tells VOA that partners are helping the state in breeding the endangered monkeys and then releasing them to the wild.
The NGO, together with us, is actually also doing community sensitization and looking for alternative livelihoods for the community members who were into hunting and some of these anthropogenic activities that affect these primates that naturally occur there. So that when these animals are released, the community feels part of the whole project. They have other things to do for their livelihoods, so they don't go back too much into hunting to deplete further the populations of these animals.
Ghanaian authorities hope the recovery efforts will help increasing their numbers in the near future. Victoria Amunga for VOA News, Accra, Ghana.
The Independent National Electoral Commission and the European Centre for Electoral Support are asking women in Nigeria to play key roles in elections and vie for elected positions, as female participation is crucial. Well, this comes as the February 12 area council elections in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, draws near.
Officials of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, and the European Centre for Electoral Support are holding this town hall meeting with women groups and gender-focused civil society organizations in Abuja. The exercise is targeted at scaling up the number of women participating in the elections.
As at 2019 general elections in FCT, 601,618 females registered in the FCT. This figure is too poor, and we hope that in the upcoming FCT elections, council elections, more women who have collected their PVC will come out to vote.
Beyond the issues of inclusivity, the electoral body also wants the women groups to advocate for a peaceful conduct of the forthcoming elections into the 6 area councils in the FCT.
As CEOs, CSOs, and women groups, you should be enlightening our youths, because in every election, whenever there is trouble, it's our youths. Please, after this roundtable, you go back to your bases and start educating them on the need for them to have a peaceful, free, fair and credible election in the FCT.
However, the European Centre for Electoral Support is asking women groups in Nigeria to play key roles in electoral reforms.
With the ongoing process of the electoral reform, we saw the huge efforts that have been devoted by women groups, and the constitution review process ongoing will capture the needs of Nigerian women.
It is exactly 1 month to the February 12 area council elections, and the hope is that more women will participate in the election.
Islamic State militants terrorized many parts of the world for years, and they kidnapped, tortured, and murdered countless people in Iraq and Syria. Now, since their territorial defeat in 2019, they have largely dropped out of the headlines. But Islamic State remains a boiling human rights and security threat that could have far-reaching consequences. Heather Maddock reports from northeastern Syria.
For many people around the world, Islamic State is a group that is fading into history, the cause of terrible times between 2014 and 2019. when violence exploded beyond the borders of Iraq and Syria, and the world watched as extremists took land, captives, and many, many lives. But here in northeastern Syria, an area controlled by the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces, IS remains an ongoing threat from inside prisons, camps, and shadowy sleeper cells.
After the extremists were defeated, there were fewer terrorist attacks, but now the numbers are starting to increase. There is more IS activity.
He says makeshift prisons are packed with 12,000 alleged IS fighters from around the world. Prisoners, with the help of supporters on the outside, often attempt jailbreaks. Inside the prison, there is also an ongoing human rights crisis. Besides overcrowding, none of these men have been charged with a crime in the years they have been locked up.
There's people maybe saying that this is the best kind of punishment, nothing like this, not knowing what's coming tomorrow.
Tens of thousands of women and children from Iraq, Syria, and more than 50 other countries also live in detention centers in northeastern Syria, where they still follow IS's extremist rules. Since the beginning of the year, military authorities say, more than 70 people have been murdered in this camp. Authorities say the murders were punishments from women who have appointed themselves the IS religious police. Meanwhile, when boys in the camp turn between 12 and 14, they are taken from their families and moved into another detention center, a school intended to de-radicalize them. Teachers say, in some sense, this is working.
At first, when boys get here, they have no focus, but after some time, they are able to concentrate and want to study more.
But detention center administrators say de-radicalization may never help foreign boys, who are just transferred to an adult prison when they turn 18. They come from dozens of countries, and the boys say their only hope is to go home. Authorities here have repeatedly called on the international community to take back their citizens, help stage trials, and rebuild the region. The threat may be local now, they say, but as the crisis deepens, it could easily become global again. Heather Murdoch, VOA News, Northeastern Syria.
3 generations of women artisans in Senan, northwest of Tunis, are working tirelessly to preserve their unique pottery-making tradition. Pottery craft is a cultural heritage and source of livelihood for these women who fabricate mud into beautiful cooking utensils.
Sejene, in Bizerte, northwest of Tunis, is famous for its unique pottery style and colors. Crafted mainly by women artisans, the pottery exhibits intricate Berber detail through a unique fabrication method. Situated some 120 kilometers northwest of the capital Tunis, Sejene is a primarily rural society, heavily invested in close-knit communities that pass on generation-old skills. 86-year-old Dabia Sidani works on pottery with her daughter and her granddaughter. The women from 3 generations say the process is difficult but a pleasure. Dabia said she learned the craft from her own mother, who learnt it from her ancestors.
Our ancestors used to work in this profession. My mother used to make pottery, so I started doing it like her, as did my daughter. My mother worked, so did I, and now it's time for my daughter and her daughter after her to make pottery. This method is inherited through generations.
Using mud, fire, the kneading of their hands and feet, the pottery craftswomen of Sejene have created an array of artwork, both for sale and exhibition.
We search for this mud, then we bring it and put it in water until it swells. We then soften it by pressing it with our legs and knead it so it becomes cohesive and unbreakable. From mud in the ground to cooking utensils, the process could be very tiring.
This craft is a cultural heritage inherited by generations, and we in the complex work to preserve this cultural heritage so that it does not disappear. Therefore, we encourage the new generations and the women who move to Serginane area to learn this craft and preserve it. First, as a cultural heritage, and second, as a source of livelihood for craftswomen.
Despite its difficulty, these women say they take joy in their unique profession.
Senegal has all the makings of a vibrant surf scene, consistent breaks, warm water, and a friendly, inviting culture. But without access to the raw materials needed to shape their own boards, many miss out on the fun. One local surfer found a unique way to create his own boards and has now launched a business with the goal of becoming the first Senegalese surfboard shaper. Annika Hammerschlag reports from Dakar.
Shaping a surfboard from scratch requires a great deal of skill and precision. It also requires a host of raw materials such as resin and fiberglass, which are hard to come by in Senegal. But those obstacles never deterred Pape Diouf from trying to make his own. Diouf grew up in Dakar's seaside Yoff neighborhood, where he learned to surf on boards borrowed from friends, boards that were typically imported from Europe or left behind by tourists. But Diouf says he always dreamt of making his own.
It allows you to not be dependent on the West in order to have boards. So once there's a possibility to find a board locally, it will help the Senegalese surf industry develop much more easily.
In 2019, a Lebanese-Senegalese surfboard shaper agreed to teach Diouf how to shape and repair boards. Since he didn't yet have the funds to purchase materials, Diouf began salvaging old discarded boards and repurposing them into new ones. He often gave them away to young surfers from his community who didn't have their own. Over the last year, Diouf raised more than $15,000 through online crowdfunding and from international investors. He was granted a free 6-month training meant to help local entrepreneurs develop their businesses. He's now in the running for a second round of investments. He plans to use the money to purchase the foam blanks he needs to shape the boards from scratch. Walid Moukadem is the surfboard shaper who trained Diouf.
It will be a first. It will really be a first. I don't think there are many African surfboard shapers. To know that tomorrow Pape can sell his own boards, it's huge.
Experts say there are many benefits to having surfboards shaped locally, particularly in countries where boards are not easily accessible. In Senegal, where infrastructure and businesses often rely on foreign investment, it's also a matter of national pride. Oumar Sai is the vice president of the Senegalese Surf Federation. He was the first professional Senegalese surfer and has witnessed the development of the country's surf industry.
What we would appreciate more is to have surfboards made in Senegal from Pape. It's our hope to have boards made in Senegal by a Senegalese shaper.
Sai says he looks forward to one day watching Diouf train the next generation of Senegalese surfboard shapers. Annika Hammerschlag for VOA News, Dakar, Senegal.
Well, and that's our show for today. You can find all the continent's top news and world news online at voaafrica.com. Check it out. I'm Vincent McCory in Washington. Channels Television has our last word from Lagos.
We look forward to bringing you another show next week. Don't forget, channelstv.com is your source for news and other programming. I'm Chamberlain Oso. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.